I want to start today with a question that sounds deceptively simple. It's the kind of thing you'd hear at a trivia night. But the answer really explains, why global politics is such a mess right now.
Okay.
If you had to pick the single most powerful resource on Earth, the one thing that if it vanished, civilization just stops, what would it be?
That's a great question.
Mm.
And usually when I ask people that, or when you look at the headlines, the answers are pretty predictable. People say gold,
Mhm.
because it's the classic store of value.
Right.
Or because it's the digital age, they say data.
Right.
You hear that phrase all the time. Data is the new oil.
That's definitely where my mind went. I probably have said data or, I don't know, maybe just good old-fashioned oil. I mean, we spent the last century fighting wars over it. It literally fuels the world.
And for a long, long time, you would have been 100% right. But if we look at the source material we have in front of us, specifically this article, The Current of Conflict, that whole hierarchy has fundamentally shifted.
Yeah.
It's not gold.
Hmm.
It's not data. And surprisingly, it's not even oil anymore. The most powerful resource on Earth, the one that's reshaping economics, warfare, even your own privacy, is electricity.
Electricity, the stuff that keeps my fridge cold and, charges my toothbrush, it feels a bit mundane compared to black gold or big data.
It feels mundane because it's invisible, right?
Yeah.
We just take it for granted. But the whole premise we're diving into today is that electricity is the new oil.
Okay.
And just like oil defined the 20th century, who had it, who sold it, who fought for it, electricity is defining the 21st. But the scary part isn't just that we need it. It's that the rules for electricity are totally, completely different from the rules for oil.
Okay, let's unpack that, because saying electricity is the new oil is a catchy headline, but what does that actually look like? How do you swap a barrel of crude for a flow of electrons in a geopolitical strategy?
That is exactly the mission for this deep dive. By the time we're done, you're going to understand why your phone charger is essentially a geopolitical weapon, and why the next major global conflict might not start with an explosion, but with complete, utter silence.
That is ominous. All right, but let's back up a little. To understand where we're going, we should probably look at where we've been. You said for the last 100 years, oil was king.
It was, absolutely. I
Yeah.
mean, think about the structure of the 20th century. The biggest names were oil barons, Rockefeller, Getty. The biggest strategies were all about securing oil fields in the Middle East.
Right.
If you had the oil, you controlled transportation, you controlled industry, and ultimately you controlled who could win a war. You couldn't fly a jet or drive a tank without it.
Right. It was tangible. You could put it in a barrel, ship it, you could stockpile it.
Exactly. And that is the key technical difference we need to get straight right up front. Oil is a stock. You can pump it out of the ground, put it in a strategic reserve, and it waits for you. Electricity is a flow.
It has to be used the second it's made.
Generally speaking, yes. It needs to be generated and consumed at the exact same millisecond.
But what about batteries? I mean, we can store it, can't we?
We can, sure, we'll get to those.
Yeah.
But on a grid scale, the scale of powering an entire nation, storage is incredibly expensive and difficult.
Oh.
So unlike oil, where you can ride out a shortage for months with your reserves, with electricity,
Yeah,
the system is always balancing on a knife's edge.
I see.
But here is why that dependency has shifted. The source material makes this really stark point. Everything that actually matters now runs on electricity.
I guess when you start to list it out, it becomes obvious. It's not just our lights.
No, it's the absolute backbone of the global economy. The internet doesn't run on gasoline. The banking system doesn't run on diesel. AI, telecom, modern healthcare, it is all electrons. Even the oil pipelines themselves.
They use electric pumps.
They use electric pumps to move the oil. The old energy relied on the new energy just to move around.
So the equation the article presents is basically no electricity equals no economy.
And no electricity means no power. Period. If you cut off oil, a country can run on reserves. Rationing starts, prices go up, people drive less, but things keep going.
But you cut the electricity.
Everything stops. Instantly. Traffic lights go dark, hospitals flip to emergency generators that only last a few days, communication towers fail. It is immediate, total paralysis.
That raises the stakes incredibly high. But here's where I want to push a bit. We've had electricity for, over 100 years. Why is this becoming a crisis now? Why is the demand exploding at this specific moment?
That is the crucial question, because for a long time, demand was it was pretty predictable. It grew as populations grew. But the source material shows that electricity demand is growing faster now than any resource in human history.
Wow.
And it's not because we're turning on more light bulbs. It's driven by a few specific, incredibly hungry technologies that are all hitting the grid at the exact same time.
I'm guessing artificial intelligence is at the top of that list.
It is absolutely number one. And I think people really underestimate the physicality of AI. We talk about the cloud like it's some, ethereal thing.
Right.
But the cloud is just rows and rows of servers in massive concrete buildings and AI chips. They run incredibly hot.
So they need power to run and then more power just to cool them down.
Precisely. The source notes that a single query on a large language model uses way more electricity than a normal Google search. Now, multiply that by billions, and that's just using the AI. Training the models is a whole other level of energy consumption.
Right.
The article mentions that a single large AI data center can consume as much electricity as a medium-sized city.
Wait, hold on a second. One building using as much power as an entire city?
Right.
With houses, businesses, streetlights, all of it.
Yes. We are talking hundreds of megawatts for a single facility.
Yeah.
And the tech giants, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, they are racing to build these. They're literally scouring the globe for places with spare power.
Yeah.
And they're finding out there really isn't any.
It's a land grab, but for wattage.
Exactly. And then you throw crypto mining on top of that.
Which is basically just computers burning electricity around the clock to solve math problems.
Essentially, yes. A mechanism that turns electricity directly into digital value. Then you have the huge transition to electric vehicles.
Right, the EVs. We're trying to replace the entire gasoline infrastructure with grid power.
It's a massive shift in load. Just imagine every car in your neighborhood plugging in at 6 p.m. when people get home from work. That surge. Our grid was never designed for that.
And then there's all the smart tech.
Everything. Smart homes, smart cities. We're electrifying things that used to be mechanical. Heat pumps, induction stoves. We are plugging more and more things in.
So it's not just that we need more power, it's that the demand is accelerating so fast that our infrastructure, which is, 50 or 60 years old in places, just can't keep up.
We have this insatiable hunger. And that hunger, it creates conflict. When a resource is scarce and essential, people fight over it. That's just human history.
But this energy war, as the source calls it, isn't being fought with bombs and tanks. Not yet, anyway.
No, you don't see tanks rolling over the border to steal a power plant.
Nobody's invading a country for their AA batteries.
No. But they might invade, or at least put massive geopolitical pressure on a country for what's inside those batteries.
Yeah.
This gets us to the new battlefields.
The minerals.
If electricity is the new oil, then lithium, cobalt, copper, those are the new oil fields.
Okay, I see the connection. You can't have an electric age without the raw materials to build the batteries and the wires.
Exactly. The source breaks this down really well. In the 20th century, the choke points were the Strait of Hormuz or the Suez Canal, places oil tankers had to pass through. Today, the strategic choke points are mines in the Congo for cobalt or lithium reserves in South America.
And the processing plants, because digging it up is only half the battle.
It's not even half the battle. And right now, a few nations completely dominate the processing of these critical minerals. It gives them this incredible lever they can pull.
A supply chain weapon.
Totally. If they restrict exports, the EV industry in, say, Europe or the US just grinds to a halt. The cost of grid storage goes through the roof. It's a weapon.
So controlling the ingredients is one part of it, but the source got pretty dark when it started talking about the infrastructure itself.
This is the part that keeps national security experts up at night, the vulnerability of the grid itself. We're not just talking about spies stealing secrets. We're talking about foreign adversaries actively probing and planting malware inside the control systems of national power grids.
Planting malware, so like a digital sleeper agent.
Exactly like that. The source has a quote that I think everyone really needs to hear it. Blackouts are no longer accidents. They are warnings.
That gives me chills. They are warnings. So when the lights flicker, or a whole region goes down for a few hours, it might not be a tree falling on a power line.
It might be a test, or it might be a signal, a message that says, we are in your system. We can turn this off whenever we want. The strategy is to weaponize access to electricity. You see, the grid is what experts call a cyber-physical system. It's physical machinery, turbines, transformers, all controlled by digital code. If you can hack the code, you can break the machine.
I remember reading about a test years ago where they hacked a generator, and just by changing the code, they made it physically tear itself apart.
That's the Aurora test.
Yeah.
And it's exactly the scenario. You can cause real physical destruction from a keyboard on the other side of the planet. And unlike a bombing run, which is obvious, a cyber attack can be deniable. It was a glitch. It was a rogue hacker group.
It creates this gray zone warfare.
It does. It creates instability without a formal declaration of war.
So let's play this out. What does modern warfare look like in this context? Because it sounds quiet.
It's much quieter and much faster. You don't start with an airstrike. You start with a zero-day exploit on the enemy's grid. The source calls it a cascade effect.
Walk us through it. What happens in that first hour?
Okay. Minute 1, the control systems freeze. Breakers trip. The grid goes down. Immediately, there's no light. But that's the least of your problems. Traffic signals go out. Instant gridlock in every city.
You're trapped.
Right. Elevators stop. Then the water pumps stop. Most people don't think about this, but municipal water relies on massive electric pumps. So now you have no water pressure, no toilets.
And no internet. So
Yeah.
no banking, no coordination. You can't even buy food because the credit card readers are dead.
Precisely. And what about hospitals? Ventilators stop, surgery stop. They have backup generators, sure, but those run on diesel. And if the pumps at the gas stations aren't working because they need electricity, how do you refuel the hospital generators?
It's a domino effect. It just spirals.
It's total chaos.
Yeah.
And you haven't fired a single shot. The source puts it very bluntly. Shut down the grid, shut down the country.
And the scary part is that this isn't science fiction.
No. The attacks on power infrastructure are increasing every single year. But you don't see it coming because the war is invisible. It's just lines of code fighting in the background until suddenly everything just goes dark.
It really makes you realize how fragile modern life is. We've built our entire civilization on the assumption that the plug will always work, that we have 99.9% uptime. But if that plug is the target,
Then every single part of society is vulnerable. And this isn't just about nations fighting nations. Think about ransom. We've seen ransomware attacks on pipelines and hospitals. Imagine a criminal group holding a city's power grid hostage for Bitcoin.
that's a nightmare scenario. I want to shift here because we've been talking about nations and geopolitics, but what does this mean for the person listening right now? What does this mean for the learner just trying to live their life?
It means this isn't abstract. It's going to hit your wallet, your lifestyle, and maybe even your privacy. The first and most obvious impact is economic.
Higher.
Much higher bills. As demand outstrips supply, remember that AI and EV hunger, the basic laws of economics kick in. The era of cheap, abundant energy is probably over.
So we're moving into an era of volatility.
Yes, you might see time of use pricing become much more aggressive. Using your dryer at 5 p.m. might cost 10 times what it costs at 2 a.m.
We're already seeing that in some places, peak hours.
And it'll get more extreme. We might see an increase in rolling blackouts. In places like South Africa, they call it load shedding, and it's a daily reality. But imagine that in Europe or the U.S. Imagine a future where the availability of electricity literally decide where you can live.
You mean you can't move to a certain city because their grid just can't handle another person?
Exactly. Or businesses won't open there because they can't get a guarantee of uptime. It creates this energy inequality. Richer areas might invest in their own microgrids with solar and batteries to disconnect from the chaos. Poorer areas are left with an unstable, expensive grid.
It creates a new kind of class divide, the powered and the unpowered.
It really could. But there's another layer the source brings up, which I think is fascinating and a little dystopian. Surveillance.
Surveillance. How does my power usage lead to surveillance?
Through the smart grid. To manage all this fluctuating demand, utilities are installing smart meters and smart devices everywhere. These devices track your energy usage in real time, often down to the second.
Which they do to balance the load on the grid, right?
That's the engineering reason, yes. But the data reason is they know exactly what you're doing.
Yeah.
Researchers can look at the electrical noise on your line and identify which specific appliances you're using.
No way.
They know when you're home, they know when you make coffee, they know if you bought a new big screen TV. They can infer when you're sleeping.
Wow. I had not thought about it that way. It's massive data collection happening right inside your house.
Power is no longer just physical. It's political, it's digital, and it's personal. Our dependence on a centralized grid creates a vulnerability not just for the nation, but for our personal privacy.
That is a heavy thought. It really drives home this point that we're in a massive transition, moving from the age of oil, which was messy and physical, to this age of electrons, which is invisible, digital, and just everywhere.
And that transition is what the source calls the current of conflict. It's happening right now. We're watching the geopolitical plates shift in real time.
So to wrap this up, let's just recap the journey. We started with this idea that electricity is the new oil.
Right. We looked at the driver's AI, EVs causing this huge explosion in demand.
Then the new battlefields, the supply chain choke points for things like lithium and cobalt.
And we look at the dark side, the cyber warfare, the weaponization of the grid, and the potential for a war that starts in silence.
The key takeaway really seems to be that this energy war will define our century, just like oil wars define the last one.
Absolutely. New superpowers will rise based on who controls energy, storage, and grid technology. And old superpowers, if they fail to protect their infrastructure, they will fall. It's a complete rewriting of the global rule book.
It definitely makes me look at the outlet on my wall very differently. It's not just a hole in the wall. It's an umbilical cord to a global conflict.
It is. And it leaves us with the final thought from our source material, which I think is the most important thing for you to take away from this.
Go for it.
The question is not if this shift happens. It's already here. The machinery is already in motion. The real question is whether humanity learns to control this new form of energy, to secure it, to share it fairly, to manage our hunger for it, or whether we will become controlled by it.
That's the tension, isn't it? Are we the masters of the grid or just nodes in it?
Exactly. Electricity is the new oil, and the war for it has already begun. The next time you plug in your phone, just remember, you're connecting to the most contested battlefield on Earth.
On that cheerful note, we're going to leave you to think about that. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us today.
My pleasure. Stay curious and maybe keep a flashlight handy.